Now back to Ottawa Today with Mark Sutcliffe on 1310 News and simulcast on Rogers TV.
It's a great pleasure to welcome to Ottawa Today retired Major General David Fraser, who has a new book, Operation Medusa, the Furious Battle That Saved Afghanistan from the Taliban. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Mark, it's good to be with you today.
And I should point out, you're an Ottawa boy.
I am.
This is your home.
This is home. I grew up here, went to school here at university, started my military career in the reserves here, and my sons still live here, so it's good to be home.
Okay, well, welcome home. Great to have you here. And we should remind people of the role that you played in Afghanistan. You were the Canadian general in charge of the Joint Military Command.
Yes, so I had two jobs. I was the Canadian contingent commander for all the Canadian forces in Kandahar, plus I was the commander of Regional Command South that commanded the 6 southern provinces in Afghanistan, 9 nations. Worked under Operation Enduring Freedom, the U.S.-led coalition, and then moved over into ISAF, which was a NATO coalition.
I think there is a perception that some Canadians have that on some level, what happened in Afghanistan didn't achieve the goal that was set out initially, or that on some level, while we did our best, that we didn't succeed in Afghanistan. So what can you tell us about that, and how does Operation Medusa and saving Afghanistan from the Taliban, as you put it in the title of the book, how does that relate to that perception?
Well, I think what the book does is it opens up a window to a level of complexity and intensity that we've rarely seen. I think what Brian and I have done is woven a story together of comradeship, sacrifice, loss, and heroism, and putting into context that, you know, this is like a snapshot in time, but represents what Canada did throughout our entire time in Afghanistan, that we couldn't win this in that time that we were there. Our job was not to lose. The Battle of Medusa was not to lose, but it was to buy time so that the peace process could carry on. So now it's 2018. The peace process has matured a bit. Now that we're talking about peace, a settlement with the Taliban, to bring the Taliban to the table to find a political settlement. There is no such thing as a military victory today, a la what we did in the War of 1812 or the Battle of Waterloo. Those don't exist anymore. Militaries just buy time and create conditions that allow development and political settlements to happen.
So does that mean we should view our time in Afghanistan as a success in doing that?
Success may be too strong of a term, but I think what I view as our time, we contributed to the development and the maturing of a political process that has allowed us to get to where we are today. I mean, I visited Afghanistan twice after that mission. I saw the Afghan security forces would get much, much better. Where I was leading back then, when I went back 2 other times, they were leading and doing what I was doing. If I look at the political situation when I started with Asadullah Khalid and where we look at it today, they have matured a lot further. But let's face it, they're still only 17 years old as a nation, and they're still working it out.
Let's talk about Operation Medusa. What do Canadians need to know about this battle?
What Canadians need to understand is, and I think what this book really does, it puts into context all the other literature that's out there, is the scale of what was at stake here. NATO's largest battle, Canada's largest battle, Canada was the lead nation. The stakes, what was it? It was NATO's reputation, Canada's reputation, Kandahar, Afghans' reputation. The intensity, 500 Taliban fighters, top 10 commanders coming from all the provinces, including Pakistan. Never before had we seen a concentration of enemy like that. Never since has we seen anything like that. This was a turning point in the campaign. It was at the time what the Taliban thought they could take us on and beat us. They failed, and those are the words of General Bismillah Khan, the head of the Afghan forces, not David Fraser. And the impact was, politically, we had minority governments in Canada, the Netherlands, in Great Britain. You had NATO. Our credibility of being invited in to help a nation like Afghanistan, to help a Muslim nation, had we failed in this one operation, in this mission, the consequences could have been dire, and we may be in a different situation, but we're not.
Yeah. And do you think, are we, there, I get the sense that it's been some time now. We were commenting before we came on the air about just how quickly time has moved. I think of what happened in Afghanistan still very much in the present tense, even though Canada's role there has largely come to an end. But some time has passed. Do you think we are able to have a different perspective? Do you think there's more context now to understand what happened in Afghanistan, including this battle?
So our time in Afghanistan has ended, but we continue as a nation to support the peace process there. We have moved on to places like Latvia, Ukraine, and doing the same thing there that we did in Afghanistan. And I think right now, the lessons that we learned out of Afghanistan are as applicable and as germane today for things like the mission in Mali that we're about to enter.
Right.
And if I look at the whole government approach that Canada adopted back then, and the creation, when I had a political advisor, a development advisor, the whole of government Team Canada on the ground, harnessing, concentrating our efforts, is as germane today as it was back then. And I think that's something that we should consider as we move forward with whatever Canada does.
Operation Medusa was about 15 days. Is that right?
15 days hard fighting. It's essentially started around sort of July, August, when the 1st Battalion, Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry, hit the infamous White School. The 1st Battalion Royal Canadian Regiment came in at the height of the battle, and for about 15 days, they did the hard lifting, hard fighting, and got to the end where, in fact, we declared that it was a successful operation.
Yeah. And what did it take for it to be a successful operation?
In a word, relationships. It's about people. And the relationships that
That's an interesting answer. That's not the kind of answer you expect when you're talking about a military battle, right?
The military is all about one thing, people. It's about people and relationships and working together as a team. And the relationship that Canada had with NATO, with the United States, with Great Britain, the relationship that we had amongst ourselves as Canadians, working through the adversity, the complexity, we worked together to find solutions to the problems that didn't have any possible solutions.
Yeah. When was the last time you were in Afghanistan?
Probably about 2009, 2010. Okay. And I saw tremendous progress.
Okay.
So when I was there, the Corps commander was a guy named Raufi. I went back. He was now the governor. And I saw the Afghan security force following us to actually planning, to actually running rehearsals, to actually conducting operations without even asking for our support. So significant progress. Today, there's about 300,000 Afghan security forces, which we only could have dreamed of back then. It sounds good. They're a long way from providing peace and stability across the entire country, but it is moving along. And I think that's the key. It continues to evolve. It has not stalled completely.
What did you personally learn from your experiences in Afghanistan? What did you take away from it?
You can't do this without working with people. And this isn't about one person. And in the book, I talk about the complexity, but I also talk about building that relationship with the posse, with people like Mother, with Ben Frakley, with David Richards. It taught me that the more that you can, as a leader, provide the trust and the confidence in your people first, and they have to, actually break that to lose it. You give it to them, they in turn will absolutely amaze you. And by working together, we're stronger than individuals. The strength is in all of us being together as one team.
We paid a price, obviously, in Afghanistan, and in the loss of lives and in soldiers who came back wounded, mentally and physically. What is it like for you as a leader to see that price that is paid by so many people? What do you go through?
For any leader in history, and in fact, I'll give you... I was sitting in a barber chair in Kandahar, and I was looking over to a young soldier, probably 22, 23, and what I saw was a 65-year-old man in a 22-year-old body. It just, the weight of responsibility on our young women who do this willingly, and that makes my job even more important, that I make sure I mitigate the risk, but you can't mitigate it down to zero. I lost 4 soldiers. The cover of the book shows the helicopter I'm taking off, and 4 soldiers, shapes of soldiers on the cover. A day later, 2 of those 4 were killed. I mean that's personal because I know them personally, and we had 162 Canadians had their lives taken away from them in the prime of their lives. They didn't have to give up their lives; they were taken. And that is a responsibility on the shoulders of every commander, every leader at every level, that this is a dangerous business that we're doing. We have to mitigate the risk as much as possible and do as much as we can to provide the resources and help those men and women, so we bring that risk as low as possible. And that includes, the non-combatants like Afghans in this case and whatnot. And it's not about a body count. It's about, how do we mitigate it and how we keep people talking.
Great to meet you. Congratulations on the book. You're going to have an event tonight at the Rideau Club at 5:30.
We are indeed, and I look forward to seeing people.
Yeah, good luck with that. And thank you for stopping by. Thank you as well for your service to our country.
Mark, thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Retired Major General David Fraser, his new book, Operation Medusa, the furious battle that saved Afghanistan from the Taliban. Coming up next, more on tonight's Ontario Debate.
Back in minutes with the stories that matter to you on Ottawa Today with Mark Sutcliffe on 1310 News and Rogers TV.